All right, so for part of this exciting HasLab launch, the Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes Engine of Vengeance, we're really thrilled to have two special guests with us today. I think it's a super special opportunity because we don't often get the chance to speak directly with the creators of these comic characters that we love, but we are so thrilled to be joined by Felipe Smith and Trad Moore. They are the creative team who actually brought us Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider for the first time way back in 2014. That sounds like a long time ago, but you guys it probably felt like just like yesterday, right?
Yeah, it does actually. That's crazy.
So again, thank you guys for joining us, and I just wanted to get your take on kind of the background of Robbie Reyes for some of those fans who may not know the complete history, and then get your thoughts on that awesome HasLab that we just revealed earlier today. So yeah, guys, you know, the first appearance, as we said, back in 2014, it was part of the all-new imprint for Marvel. So can you just take us through some of the background on how this opportunity came about and kind of what went into launching this new Ghost Rider title?
I guess it started with an email from Mark Panicia, our editor, and he reached out and said he had an interesting project for me. I had just come back from Japan, so I'd been gone from the country for about 4 years, and so Mark reaching out and saying, "Hey, I got a project, a comic book project you might be interested in." Mark, of course, was working at Marvel, and he mentioned it was Ghost Rider. And I thought, okay, immediately I thought, what Ghost Rider stories have already been told? What could I tell that's different? Can I tell something different? It's a character that has a long history. And then he said it would be a new character and that it would not be a motorcycle, it'd be a car. And that I was free to pretty much create the character with those stipulations in mind. And immediately I wanted to. The car did it for me, definitely. And the fact that it was a new character, it opened a lot of opportunities to do different things. And so, after that, they were looking for artists. And I'm an artist myself, so I was like, I want to draw this. And they're like, well, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. So we want you to write it. And then they found the gentleman right next to me, and I couldn't have been happier to work with an artist of this caliber. So how was it for you, Trey?
Thank you. It was interesting. It was Mark. Yeah, he reached out to me, and I was young. I was a youngin'. We had met. I had met Mark Panicia when I was a student, and he, I guess, maybe had his eyes on me or whatever. And he reached out to me about this book, and he kind of buried the lead because he didn't say that it was going to be a brand new version of Ghost Rider, and he said, "Hey, you want to work on Ghost Rider?" And at that time, I was like independent, super, want to own everything that I do, independent man. But then he was like, Felipe Smith is involved, and shared some of Felipe's work with me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. And then that's when he also revealed, like, you get to make the new character. This is starting from scratch, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, why didn't you start with that, buddy? So from there, it was I jumped at the opportunity, and it was fun to have all that energy of making something brand new, but knowing that it would be shared with so many people. It was really exciting. So yeah, that was my start.
Yeah, and Felipe did give us some awesome comic cover variants too, and so it was that kind of team, right, of you guys working together on it, with Trad on the first couple of issues there. And so, yeah, just speaking about the characters' designs, what kind of went into the consideration of launching this new Ghost Rider and not be what we're used to for Johnny Blaze or Danny Ketch, where it's this, a bear kind of skull fully engulfed in flames? Like, what went into Robbie's signature look?
I guess it was definitely a team effort between Trad and myself. We both did sketches on our own. We had the thing that was awesome. I guess we talked about this already with Trad before, but like we kind of had the same thing in mind as we were sketching independently. And then when we threw the designs at Mark, we saw each other's designs. We were like, oh, hell yeah. Like that's what I was thinking. So it was pretty organic in terms of how it came out. I don't know. That's how I felt. How'd you feel about it, Trad?
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. It was I don't think we had to make a lot of things explicit, verbally, because we were just sharing our artwork back and forth, and it was kind of exciting seeing like what kind of like symbols and images we were both like pulling from, and then what we could pull from each other. So I honestly don't even think it took many passes back and forth. You know what I mean? We maybe had I don't even know if we had a phone call beforehand or afterwards. It was it came together. It just kind of poured out of us.
Yeah, it happened pretty quickly. I remember I'd seen, I guess, one of your first drawings of Robbie Reyes with his leather jacket with the white horseshoe design. And I thought, man, that's really good. Like that's super solid. Like that's like at a glance, immediately it's recognizable. And so I remember doing my first pass at the all new Ghost Rider transformed design. And I knew I wanted to put that in no matter what. And then it was a matter of thinking, okay, well, story-wise, Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider differs from Danny Ketch and Johnny Blaze and Carter Slade in terms of his source of power. And the spirit of Eli is the spirit of a Satanist serial killer. And so I wanted, somehow the design had to show that there was a difference in the source of power. And, having a vehicle already, which again, that's another thing that I think we coincided right away. I was a little worried because I knew for sure I wanted a muscle car, but I didn't know how Trad felt about car designs and like what kind of thing he would find entertaining to draw as well. And then that's another thing I think we coincided on.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And, I know that also in the design process, we wanted to really tether Robbie with the vehicle, so I wanted it to feel like they had some like bizarre otherworldly connection between he and the car. Like it had like scarred him, like melted onto him, so that was my, initial kind of like thought process of, this kind of merger of demon and man and machine, just lay on top of each other and set it on fire. What does it look like? So yeah, with the skull, I was trying to pull elements from the muscle car aspect that we had agreed upon and kind of subtly put it in there with the skull. And obviously you just want to make it look evil and cool. So we nailed that.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it was funny. Like I did a couple like doodles while we were waiting to see like who was going to work on the series. And one of them had, I wanted to show in the story, like you said, it's a combination of like this, kind of like, hell-powered vehicle. And then you've got, an organism, which is Robbie. And in terms of the skull, I thought, okay, like I remember I just did a sketch where he had the blower on his forehead, to like try to link it to the car in some way. And, a lot of times in the design process, you kind of do a bunch of stuff. It's kind of a, stream of consciousness, like, okay, these shapes work, or maybe this doesn't. You kind of jot a couple things. And I remember Mark saw the blower and said, yeah, like keep doing that, And then eventually when we started trading designs back and forth with Trad, we started fine tuning like parts of the vehicle, like the profile. He's got like the round shape, which kind of mimics like the rims. And then we looked at the back of the car, and you had like the exhaust pipes, and so Trad worked that into the back of the head. There's probably those designs are online. You can find them really easily if you just look it up. But yeah. We really went in and tried to like make the design not only cool and evil, but like really tie it into like what his mode of transportation was in battle. So yeah, it did happen pretty organically and pretty quickly as well, right? I mean, we all have deadlines, but like fortunately this thing kind of went pretty quickly.
Yeah, and there was something else I feel like about the design that I wanted to tap into at the time, that I wanted even the way fire poured from him to look different than other Ghost Riders, So a lot of times when you see Robbie get upset and the fire gets crazy, it's sparking out of his face and mouth, and it's like gas is like guzzling, like liquid out of his face, so it was just, we wanted everything to, again, tie to the vehicle, tie to who he is. And that was a fun part about it too, because in times where I've drawn other Ghost Riders, that's something that I try to be specific about too. I was like, no, Robbie's fire looks like this, and Johnny Blaze's looks like this, and it's those little things I think sometimes that you might think are just like a stylistic quirk of an artist, but then some of it is that, but then other times it is a specific defined thing, where it's like, I mean, that would even be in the script. I remember, Felipe, where you'd say like, gas guzzling from his mouth, you know what I mean? And I just think it made
spittle. There was a lot of spittle in the scripts.
Mm-hmm.
Tried to mention the fire and the flames coming off of Robbie's all new Ghost Rider mode head, and I think your rendering of flames and fire and explosions and basically, I guess in video games you'd call particle effects, but we've talked about this before with Trad, and I'm like, like that's, certain scenes are really sold with that, because it brings kind of like a visual, it brings an emotional element of the character, like you said, visually very clearly. And I think that's probably something I would say most people who read the original All New Ghost Rider run, your depiction of flames and fire and effects is something I think brought a lot of people in and they really enjoyed. That's like a very strong part of the series visually, I believe, at least.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sure. It's cool to see that repeated through the hands of other artists. It's very cool.
That's awesome insight. Thank you guys for sharing that. It's interesting, right? A lot of times people say the best work kind of comes naturally, right? And you guys seemed to be on the same page from the start when you were thinking about the character and working out the designs. And what we ended up with was awesome. And hopefully we're doing him justice in the HasLab here. Just one of the questions that I had in rereading the issues, speaking about these action sequences, I noticed Robbie, he has like a pretty brutal fighting style, if you will, but he's also highlighted by some acrobatic moves and kind of how he uses both the flames and his chained weapons. Can you guys just speak to how you developed some of those really awesome action sequences from this run?
I'll start and then I'll hand it off to Trad. Pretty much the way I think we started working. At first, I'd never worked with other artists, so I had visually in my mind what I wanted to happen on paper. So I was very specific about, where the camera placement was, where the action was coming from the left side of the panel or the right, like very specific. And I think, some artists like that, others might not, because they feel like it cramps them. But once I started working with Trad and I realized like what his things were stylistically and what he enjoyed doing, it became pretty easy to basically be specific about certain things in the script, and then others just let Trad go and do his thing. And so for a lot of the action, there might have been, especially later on in the series, there'd be specific things that I wanted in a certain way in a panel. And then after that, I would just tell Trad, all right, go crazy. Like, we just need the fight to end this way. You do what you need to do to make it look awesome. And I don't know, what do you think? Did that work?
Yeah. No, that was, it's funny you brought up particle effects, from video games before. And that's something that when I'm kind of like working with a character's fighting style or trying to figure out how they handle themselves in action sequences, I do try to distinguish them in my mind as like a fighting game character, like having grown up playing a lot of, Street Fighter-esque games, fighting games. You will love a character first and most purely on the design and functionality of them. So that was the thing with Robbie. It's like, if I'm drawing Robbie Reyes or Silver Surfer or Doctor Strange or whoever, I want them to move different, to think different, to use the environment differently. So yeah, that kind of intensity and brutality with Robbie, it needed it to come across in everything that he did. Like, he had to walk like he was upset. He needed to fight like he was. It was, he's a angsty teenage boy. You know what I mean? So a lot of that just kind of like pent up frustration. I wanted that to just come across in everything that he did. So yeah, anytime you had like an action sequence, I wanted to be like, how would this play? Would I want to do this move in a video game? If I showed that to a friend, would they be like, oh yeah, this game's tight? Like. So yeah, that was a lot of when I'm doing action sequences. I was basically just trying to build this character in a certain way where nothing is unexamined. You know what I mean? I like, how does he throw a punch? How does he throw a kick? Why would he do this? What is his car doing while he is doing this thing? It needed to be very holistic in that way. So that's what you got to think about if you're doing a fight sequence that's actually going to feel, like it's happening one panel after another, rather than just like a bunch of cool shots of, characters doing whatever, but it doesn't actually feel like it's moving from one thing to the other. So yeah, play fighting games, right, and obsess over details, and then draw them.
Yeah. Well, talking about games too, I just wanted to add, your choreographies in the comic were, clear enough that it translated into his appearance in video games. There's a fighting mobile game with Robbie, and the cars in there too, and the way he swings his chains, everything, like a lot of those moves are out of the comic, which is awesome. So mission accomplished right there.
I know. I get really excited about that anytime someone sends me a link of in the handful of games he's been showing up in, and yeah, there will be moments where I'm like, oh, that is from the comic. You know what I mean? So it's very, very, very cool to see that it's not just prosaic moments that people are pulling from of like, this character's cool because this happened in the story. It's like these actual actions that the character did stuck with people in a way. And that's very cool. That's very cool to see.
Yeah, it's awesome. And also, again, I always like to, I don't know, I guess give hats off to artists who work in other mediums and like translate it like faithfully, because it takes work to look at somebody else's work and say, okay, what does this make? They basically went through the process of what you did, thinking about how Robbie would move or act in action, and then said, okay, they saw it too. And they're like, okay, let's do that. Let's really make it feel like this character.
Well, it starts with the comic, and then it goes into other mediums like video games, and now, finally into Marvel Legends action figures. Speaking of growing up with video games, something else I grew up with are Marvel trading cards. I don't know if you guys were the same, but that was kind of how I learned about the Marvel characters before, when the internet was still kind of a new thing. And so I just wanted to segue that to ask you guys, kind of putting you on the spot, but maybe there's two of you, so the first one to come up with something. But those trading cards used to have these fun facts or trivia points about characters, So what's one thing maybe that most fans maybe aren't aware of, or something about Robbie or the creation of Robbie that maybe you want to share with us? Would that be fun?
Something interesting about the creation of Robbie Reyes.
Or just the character on the whole, yeah.
Well, I've got one actually. I've got one that I want to say right now because I've seen online people speculate about it. His last name is Reyes, and there's another character that has the same last name for for the distinguished competition is the name they give to that. But the reason Robbie Reyes is because my first editor in comics was Louis Reyes. And Louis worked with Mark Panicia at another publisher before Mark Panicia moved to Marvel. And I owe a lot of, just in general, having a career and having been able to publish my work the way I want, and especially my first title, to Louis Reyes, my editor. So the Reyes and Robbie Reyes was just an acknowledgement of Lewis, who's an awesome editor and a great guy. So there you go. People were wondering why Reyes, why Reyes. Now you know. I don't know if that's interesting. I think maybe it's interesting to people who work in publishing and see
that's
how characters are created. But yeah.
I got one that is character based that I know that this was part of our thought process in the design, but I don't know if it ever was made explicit in the comic. But I remember us talking about like, what type of music does Robbie listen to? And we had decided to go with a very like techno electronic sound for him. And it's an interesting thing. At the time, I was living in Atlanta, and I would be driving. I had to multiple times a month, really early in the morning, drive my partner to the airport, and I would. If you've ever been to Atlanta, those highways are very seldomly open. But if you're driving someone to the airport at 4 or 5 in the morning, it's a little bit open, and I'd be drawing Ghost Rider. And then I would have those open highways very early in those mornings, and I would just be blasting techno, just driving down these highways. And I felt that when I would be drawing the character in some of those scenes, like the chase sequence in issue 2, where he's like when he's chasing the guys down the highway. In my head,
military sports utility vehicle.
In the military sports vehicles, in my head, I can just hear that. Not that you have to. If you hear some other different type of music, bless you. That is your version of Robbie. But in my head, and I drew him, he's listening to techno.
Yeah, I remember you sent me a bunch of tracks. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like when we were coming up with ideas, you sent me an email with a bunch of tracks. Yeah. Now that's another thing. Again, like a lot of those tracks, I was like, yeah, like I'm glad to be working with this artist. Like, because we were just getting to know each other when we started out. And like, once you started sending things in, I was like, yes, all right. I think this is going to work.
Well, those definitely are 2 collector card worthy fun facts. So thank you guys for sharing that. Yeah, so for all those fans, we've been talking about it a lot. Go check out the trade paperback here like I've got, or go read it on the Marvel Unlimited app. It's a super fun story, a lot of action. Robbie is actually a very interesting character. He's got a lot going on, with his brother, and he transforms into this, spirit of Eli. So I want to plug that comic, go read it. But yeah, let's talk just quickly now about the HasLab. Before we hopped on this interview, I was showing Felipe and Trad an early model of what we are developing and launching today. But guys, interested in what your initial impressions are of the Engine of Vengeance, the car, and then I have them here too. I've got the Ghost Rider Robbie figure, complete with his chained weapons. What are your thoughts of seeing this character for the first time in Marvel Legends?
Yeah, I mean, it's just exciting to see it in a form you can hold in your hands, and the designs. The design is. It's based off our design. I guess I don't know how to explain that. It's a very simple concept, actually, easy to explain. But yeah, it's just crazy to see something fully realized in 3D. I guess is what I'm trying to express here. And the attention to detail is, again, something I'm really happy about. Yeah, you guys knocked it out of the park. Even the details, I believe the back wheels are bigger than the front ones. Yep. Again, the details, back to particle effects. We have the fire, we have the brimstone, the smoke, and the peel out. It's just a lot of different things. The fact that things light up. I don't want to keep going. I'll let you talk, Trad.
Yeah. No, I'm blown away whenever you see something interpreted and iterated on, and it just turns out not only exactly how you would imagine, but better. And I would see a piece of the design and be like, oh, that's perfect. That's amazing. And then they're like, and it also lights up. And I'm like, oh my God, even better. And they're like, and you can change the wheels and it flashes. And it's like every bit of detail that would be added. I was like, do I also, like, are you going to give me free food too? Like this just, it keeps getting better, So yeah, I was blown away when I even just saw the concept, like 3D models, but then to see it physically. And also it's just like, I'm not a big collector of things myself, but, I can remember times in my life, where just like, just the feel of these things, I can still remember, like having an action figure and when it did actually have like metal on there, like the metal chains, like you knew, dang, this one is a step above, you know what I mean? And I feel like everything about the design of this and the realization of it, just, it all hit me as a step above what I'm familiar with seeing, honestly. But yeah, so super impressed. I'm also a stickler for faces, just in general, like in design material. And so that was like the most important thing. And like both the skull and the, Robbie's face are so like immaculately realized that that's what really sold me. Like so many, even if I'm not mistaken, even the like nick on his, eyebrow,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Getting down to the little detail of yeah, I mean, like even his gauges and whatnot, like even just like the slight tilt of the blonde streak. Like I look at it and I, not just yours and mine, Felipe, but I can see the drawings from various artists that the Marvel Legends team is pulling from. And gosh, eagle eyes, every one of you just keyed in on that stuff and nailed it. It's incredible.
It's awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, on behalf of our design team, Dwight Stahl and Mark on the Pulse team there. Like they were inspired by your work, and so it means a lot for us that you guys are psyched about this coming out too. And so taking it all back to the comics, there's one final little touch that we put on the item thanks to your suggestion. So there is a custom Vanity license plate that fans will see, and it is actually a series of letters and numbers. So I'll just tell all the fans what it is, and maybe you guys can explain the backstory to that. So 3L1 MRW, what could that possibly mean?
So yeah, when you mentioned the possibility of having a specialized license plate for the Engine of Vengeance, we came up with a couple of different ones with Trad, and the one we came up with, like, it was 3L1 MRW, which is Eli Morrow, which is the source of all the Ghost Rider's power. It's the spirit of Eli, not a spirit of vengeance. And so, yeah, we thought that's something that a reader of the original series would pick up on, I think, a lot quicker than maybe people who've became acquainted with All New Ghost Rider later on, or through different media. This is very comic specific. And it's also part of his, I guess, the genesis of this character and the source of, the powers that changed his life forever. So, I remember shooting an email to Trad with a couple different options, and I guess that one stuck out the most. Yeah.
The Eli Morrow option, talking about, as we were with the design of the character, we want every bit of this to feel cohesive and connected. And it's like, it's those little details of, the character and Robbie's connection with the car, and then the license plate describing a little bit more what's going on in terms of, the demonic power side of things. I felt like it was a nice touch that fully encapsulated this piece as like a standalone, almost storytelling piece in the singular image of it. So very cool. But yeah, all props to Felipe on that one.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you guys for joining us today. This is a huge day for the Marvel Legends team, launching this new HasLab for the Engine of Vengeance. And so thank you guys for your time today. Thank you, of course, for the inspiration and all the awesome source material. Hopefully, we did your vision justice. And I think the fans are really going to love getting this item next year, when it hopefully ships out. So before we head out, anything you guys want to plug, or can the fans follow you on any social media? What do you have going on?
I'm on Twitter at Felipe Tweeters. It's FelipeTweers. No, I spelled that wrong. Well, if you look up Felipe Smith, it'll show up. It's Felipe Tweeters. Tweeters. That's what it is. And I'm on Instagram, Felipe Smith Art on Instagram. You can find me there.
I am not on those things, so don't find me anywhere. No, I'll be coming out with a new. I got a new book coming out with Marvel called Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise. Ooh. And that comes out in the fall. So look for that in November. And I'm writing and drawing it. So you'll find a lot of me in there, maybe too much. Put it away, hide it. And that's it.
Nice. I can't wait, dude. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Very excited for that. We'll be sure to check it out. Thanks again, guys. And there you have it. The Engine of Vengeance officially sponsored, can I say, by the comic creators here. 2 thumbs up, I hope.
Definitely. Fully co-signed. Amazing.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. And go back the Engine of Vengeance today.